Hi friends, and welcome to Dr. Blue Plans. Years ago I made a video on this planner. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I was just amazed at how many people said they loved it, said they loved the design of it, said they loved little things that I did. They just loved it. I'm amazed at how many of you subscribed. It was just lovely, but it also, on the other hand, made me feel a bit guilty because I didn't stick to it. You saw this snapshot of this lovely planner, this perfect glimpse into this just sort of neatness that I didn't sustain. A glimpse into this neatness that I did not carry forwards. I have been on a planner journey since then. I've learned a lot of things about me and the way I work. And I just want to sort of share with you the things that failed in planners, things that I'm thinking about. So this is a very quick overview of some of the planners I've used, some of the ways I've used them, what worked, what didn't work. And then my intention is to really hone in on the aspects of planning. This planner journey has taught me that the planner system has to adapt to everything that's changing. My whole life has gone through changes in the past few years, and especially, as many of you know, in 2020, life has changed and we've all had to adapt. And I think the planner system that you use, the notebooks that you use, it all has to adapt with you. So that's what I'll be talking about through the next few videos. It is not going to be this beautiful from now on. It will be raw and real, and it might get back to this level of niceness, but it might never get back here. I'm just trying to put myself out there. It's been a bit difficult for me, which is why it's been so long. So we'll get straight back into it. So this is what you saw last time. So where it fell down was I started to have, so there started to be gaps. There started to be whole pages that I'd missed. There started to be just empty spaces, titles that were missing. So for me, I like to have a full page. I like to have very little space. I like it to be crammed and full. I don't like to have to reference back to things. If it's some information, then I'm fine at referencing back. But weekly to-dos and stuff, I just want to have it there. I don't want to reference it after that week's done. I don't really need to reference it back. I think that's why when the week's gone and it's not a full page, that's when it sort of starts to get a bit, I sort of started to feel like the system's breaking down, I think. So that's where this planner failed for me. It became quite a lot to set up. I missed sections. There was starting to be large gaps. There was just pages unfinished. I did, before I finished this, go through a phase of doing dailies. So I had just a time bar of what I was doing when that was color coded. And then I just started to write out the days lists. This became quickly overwhelming because I had to have so much stuff on the page. So then I adapted it to have just the appointments and then the 3 things that I should get done that day, and then just a sort of general notes page. But because it was in a whole square and it had just a simple dead title, I think this looked quite neat. And it looked quite full, and it was like this part could be scrappy, but I still had the structure at the top. So that worked well, but it did sort of soon fall down. I think the 3 things to do, I don't work quite well with those sort of 3 things to do. And the other way it fell down was because I think during this time I had a good colour code, everything was sectioned quite nicely, so I knew my uni work was green and like personal was blue, and things became a bit blurred. So everything wasn't nicely sectioned, and so this system didn't allow for the blurring of the sections. So yeah, that's this one. And then I went from this one, so I went to this larger size, and I went to this format of just scribbling everything down, just trying to get everything done, everything out my head, sort of a brain just dump type thing, just get it on the paper, no matter how messy it might look. This sort of highlighted the fact that I didn't go back as much as I kind of thought to reference stuff. I don't quite go back as much, so that's what happened next. So things that I've tried along the way, I use this tiny notebook. So if I use this small notebook as a reference size, this is really quite small. And I used this year just to jot down 6 things that I needed to get done, and then just had a little extra section along the bottom. By the time you've got exercise and like if you needed to just do something small, 6 things was better than 3 things for me. When you try and have 3 main things, I just needed to look and see all of it. My aim was always to get 83 or above, so sort of 5 out of 6 done. And that was sort of a good day. Setting this little notebook up the day before was really helpful. So this was a really good system because it just was scrappy. I just scribbled out when I'd done it. It just sort of gave me a focus on what that day. When I woke up, I knew that I did it. I did it in this order. I'd written it out in the order, and I couldn't skip to number 6 before I'd done number 4. And it was a really good structure when I needed it. So that worked quite well. I also had, for my uni work, I had this system here. So I was doing a PhD, have now finished the PhD, but this is just a filofax, and I had just the little subsections along the top, major chapters along the top, and subsections along the side, and I just printed off when I got work back and corrections that I needed to do, printed them off in here, slid them into these folders, and then just crossed them off when I'd finished correcting them. So I just highlighted when I finished correcting them, and just this was the best and easy way to sort of get the structure in my head about which chapters and be able to flick, because a lot of these early chapters I needed to flick and reference to quite a lot. So it was really easy to just flick and reference. It was good to know when I'd corrected something. So this was just a really good way if you've got a large body of text that you need to go through, if you've got a large sort of project and subsections and things. I think this was a really good way of doing that. So that really worked. Other things I've tried for my personal life. I did try a filofax. I sort of tried a filofax with this sort of week on 1 day, week on sort of 2 days. And this was sort of for me and my boyfriend to jot down things that we had going on and both of our lives, sort of things to do, type things to just get us both organised and both in one place. So this system didn't work for us because he's not a planner person, and I'd write things to do and in here, things that we were doing in here, things that, and he just didn't actually reference this at all. So the way in which we've now moved forwards is that we have a whiteboard which we put our joint things on, or if it's events, we just use Google Calendar. So he looks at that, he can look at that anywhere. And the whiteboard is very good for to-dos and figuring out those sorts of things. So this didn't work for us, even though the filofax works so well in my project planning uni life. It did not work in mine and my boyfriend's couple life. So that was interesting. I did use this. It was in here. It's a Marks Inc. sort of vertical calendar. So I used that for a little bit. What I find quite helpful is that when a planner or notebook doesn't work, is that to use some sort of clip to just clip the pages together so that I can essentially get that new planner feeling and fresh start without actually buying another book. What I find quite difficult is the amount of books that I have that I've started and that I haven't finished. And there's a lot of guilt about that. So, for instance, this notebook, which I showed earlier, it's just got pages of scrap sort of notes, things that I'm never going to refer back to, things that I'm not going to copy up because it was just a sort of scrap notebook. And because of the way I want my new system to be, I want everything encompassed in the new system. I'm just storing books and books of these just under my bed. And it's quite, there's a lot of guilt that I hold on to the fact that I haven't finished this book. There's pages and pages and pages of books that I just haven't finished. I think what would be quite freeing if I ripped out all the pages that I've used. I'm thinking about just sort of cutting all these pages off, sticking a bit of washi tape, and then maybe just giving them to a child that I know, or sort of just trying to get rid of them so that I don't have the guilt, but make sure that they're used and loved still. As I say, I've got so many of these books that just are half used and then discarded, but I don't want to throw them away. And they're just underneath I've got boxes underneath my bed that are just holding a lot of guilt for me that I didn't get it right. Even, for example, this book that looks so perfect, I hold a lot of guilt that I haven't finished it. I hold a lot of regret that I didn't finish it. And there are still pages missing. There are still pages undone. This is easy in the sense that I can just pick this up again, because it's a bullet journal. I can just pick it up again. but I'm never going to fill all of the notebooks that I have. So if you have any ideas on what I can do with them, how I can donate them or use them, or if you just have any ideas, leave a comment below. So yeah, this is getting back to this one. I do clip. I have been using clips quite a lot to just sort of get that fresh start feeling. So use this one for a little bit over Christmas period. Still like to have it quite full, like to have the to-do lists on days that I wasn't doing anything. It sort of just, it worked for a bit and then didn't work for a bit, which seems to be it worked for a bit and then didn't work for a bit, which seems to be the story of my planner, systems. So that is that style. Used a quick notepad, sort of 7-day-a-week notepad. That didn't quite work because it's not got a lot to work in. It's just not got a lot to work in. I quite like the idea of just ripping it off and ripping it off and just throwing it away. It had less guilt if it got it sort of not looking quite right. I'd ripped it off at the end of the week, so that it didn't really matter. But then again, I didn't have anything nice to look back on. Looking back on this, it's quite nice to see and you know, just sort of, I think I just look back on it as the time I was most efficient, most sort of just a time and period in my life where it was quite good. So I quite like looking back at the neatness. So whereas this, you can't look back. And then one more thing to mention, I tried different sizes. So this is an A5 notebook. Tried different colour pages. So this is craft paper. And I tried to put sort of the style that I developed in here, which was very much boxes. So sort of tried the box idea, but more freehand. It has no lines or anything, so it was very much freehand. I didn't quite like that. What else I did in this one, which was quite a good thing, which worked quite well, was that I had space here and I just wrote the word space. There was a bit of space here, so I wrote space 2, more space here. Just put it's all good. It was about having space, but then filling the space with something, so that I wasn't worried about filling the space. This was a weekly page, so by the time this week was over, I just had space that needed filling, and in order to sort of close that week off, I just went in and filled all the little gaps, all the space, so that I didn't look back at it thinking that I hadn't filled it all in, thinking that there was some space and that I hadn't done something. I think that's a good method to use for me, personally. I think there is something for allowing myself to be okay with the fact that there is space. But until I've learnt to have that, I might just keep writing space or looking at how different ways of filling the little bits of gaps after the week is done. So that is that. The craft paper didn't quite work, but it was that sort of quick So in terms of my future and future planning, the last video you saw, which was this one, it was my planner piece at the time. It was that little bit of sort of perfection. I don't think I'll ever get to this level of perfection again, but I just want a system that works and that adapts to the different challenges in life. So in order to do that, I will first be looking at my goals, what I want in life, what I want to achieve, how to do goal setting, because if somebody asks me what I want in life, I don't quite know. And I think throughout the whole of the 2020 situation, I feel more lost. So that's sort of going to be next week's video, is going to be like sort of lost feeling and, you know, setting goals, and then it'll sort of be trying to creep slowly towards a system that works. And I think it'll always be adapting. It will always be adapting. What I hope that you get out of this is just those little things that I do differently. Everyone's brains work differently. My brain works differently to all of my friends. And it's just those little bits of tips that you pick up in everyone's videos that really helps when you put it in your own system. So I hope that you pick up those little bits of systems. I hope you find that this video was helpful. I just felt so much guilt because this had been the only planner that you'd sort of seen from me, when in reality my brain was more like this sort of craziness and messiness. So am I a neat purse planner or am I a messy one? I think I'm a mixture of both. And I'd love for you to stick around and come along this journey of me trying to find a happy medium between the two, trying to find a system that is adaptable and flexible for all walks of life, and just sort of come along this planner journey with me. Please subscribe. Next week we'll be tackling the lost feeling and the planner goals, and the goals setting, just trying to start that sort of process going. So have a great day. Thank you for watching.